What up, and welcome to the Roast with Friends podcast. It's your boy J-Man, joined again by the homie C-Rock. C-Rock, you want to tell them what it is?
What's cracking, y'all? What's cracking, y'all? Did you really just... Never mind.
I did.
Would you were about to sing Some Cut by...
Indubitably.
All right. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe. We need followers. We need traction, So, but let's get into it.
All right. So today we got a special guest with us today. Good friend of mine, known him since middle school or high school. I forget. One of the two.
I feel like it's middle school.
Middle school. Did you go to Vista? Did you go to Vista or Tomas?
I went to Tomas.
Okay. High school then.
Okay.
Unless we met, I don't know. Anyways, a good friend of mine. He's actually going to law school right now. You got 1 year left?
Got 1 year left, thank God, man, because this is the grind.
1 year left. So we just kind of want to do an episode about, his progress, his journey. I think his name is becoming a lawyer, like on social media and all that. So
yeah, almost. Yeah, I'm pretty much on any social media site. I'm academics at it, but on TikTok, like whatever the username is almost a lawyer. Almost that.
And definitely check him out. This nigga, I don't know why, but he gets on TikTok and just roasts the shit out of everybody, like professionally. If you like somebody who roasts people professionally, he has articles, he does his research, he comes with his strong, and I think he's gonna make a great lawyer. But for today's episode, I'll go ahead and let him take it from here. Let him basically let us know like what you're doing in your life when you decided to become a lawyer, how lawyer school's been going, like some of the goals you have after you finish, and, any tips for anybody who, may want to take that path.
Yeah, man. So I was working at Asurion. I don't know if you guys are aware of what Asurion is. I feel like a lot of people, yeah, I figured. So Asurion is, they do cell phone insurance. That's pretty much what they're really known for, right? So when you get insurance with whatever the carrier, Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, right, you break your phone, that's where you end up, right? You call them, they take care of everything. But I was doing like onboarding, training, things like that, and I pretty much automated the job. So I was doing, let me be real, I would probably work 2 hours a day, and then I would just play like video games the rest of the day. And especially once we went to work from home when COVID hit, then I had really like automated my tasks. It was pretty much, I was there. If I had a training class, that's when I was really working. But for the most part, I was playing video games. I was watching, Netflix. Like I was bored. I was just super bored. And I was just trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do in my life? Because I don't want to continue to do this. Like, yeah, the money is cool. Me and my wife are doing a good thing here, but like, there's got to be more. I can't do this every day. I wake up, I go, 30 feet to an office. I sit down and I wait for things to happen and kind of react to it. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I'd always thought about law school, but I just wasn't. I feel like when I thought about law school, people were pushing me in a direction of trying to make like macro impacts on people's lives. And I don't want to do that. Like, I don't care to write legislation. I don't care to be in politics. I don't care to do any of that. None of that is interesting to me. I want to help people on the micro level, like right at the point of attack, right in the middle of, right at the criminal justice system, when people are, arrested, people make one little mistake and that could have an impact that just crushes the rest of their life. And I want to be there to defend them and fight for them. So that's when I just was like, all right, cool, let's do this thing. So I took I took the LSAT, did well enough to get into, like, honestly, I did well enough to get into any school that I really wanted to, but it became, where do I want to raise my family? And I tried living on the East, and it's cold as shit. I'm not built for that, man. I'm just not. So I had applied to Vanderbilt. I thought that was going to be a choice because my wife was still working there. That's where the headquarters was at. I thought that would be a good idea. But again, the same thing, right? I got me and my family, my kids, we got no support system out there, right? There's nobody, we don't know anybody. We got no friends, nothing. And I'll just uproot everybody and just plant them down. And we would just be on an island by ourselves. Okay, I don't really want to do that. So I applied to San Diego. I applied to, I always forget the name of the school now because they changed it because racism. But it was UC Hastings. It was Hastings. But now, you know, I'm sure, I feel like you can do that with any school. Just like all these schools should just be college. They all got racist background. But yeah, it was Hastings. I think it's like University of San Francisco College of Law. And San Diego gave me the most money. So that's how I ended up here.
And then how is I guess how's school going? Like how, like the first year, you know, any challenges?
Challenges. So the week before school started, I ruptured my Achilles tendon.
I remember that. I didn't know you were going to law school at the time though.
Yeah, it was just the right before everything started. So I was at orientation, you know, still in a suit because that's what they expect you the first day. You know, and then in a boot, like had one little scooter, just putting around and all
Damn,
that. Yeah, no,
crazy.
it sucked. It sucked, bro. It was the hardest time because I had to not only, it wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to, you know, do this little bit of rehab. Like the rehab was strenuous. You know, it's every day, 2 hours a day, you know, trying to get back to, you know, the point that I wanted to be at. And then I'm doing a rigorous, you know, first year law school schedule. I got a wife, I got children, and it was stressful for like just all parties. Like, it was definitely not the way I would have wanted to start my law school career. But, you know, it is what it is. But that was a challenge. And I think the other challenge that you're not ready for, like, because I have graduate degrees. I have 2 undergraduate degrees. I have 2 master's degrees. Law school is a different beast in a number of ways. And really, it's not made for us. Like, law school is not made for anybody who look like us. It's just not. Is made, the whole purpose of it is to keep us out. They don't want us to be in there because the moment that we have the ability to not only defend ourselves, like we saw Montgomery, we throw hands and we throw folding chairs, right? But now we throwing hands in the court, right? We can fight for ourselves in the court. There's a problem, right, with white supremacist structures. So the way that law school is set up, especially at a lot of, I don't want to say lower tier, but like not necessarily your top 14 or top 10 law schools, is that your scholarships are all like conditional. You'll get them for that first year, but if you don't hit a certain threshold, you don't get it the next year. And, you know, the threshold here, it seems easy enough. Like, oh, I just got to make it in the top 75. Well, if I'm in the top 75%, if you're thinking about holistically, the entirety of like my law school class, I think that first year, I want to say it was right around like 220, 230 people in that group. And I think 5 of us were as dark or darker than me.
Damn.
Yeah, like there just weren't Black people there, right? And
that's in San Diego?
That's in San Diego, right? It's
That's
San Diego.
surprising.
So, right. So it's like, it's not like there's Latin, Hawaiian, right? Black, African-American, and Indian. Like, it's just white women for the most part. There's a whole lot of white women, white men, right? And then you had just kind of your sprinkle of us. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of us. And so you think that we got to keep it in the top 70, or we got to stay in the top 75 in order to keep our scholarship. And if we fall below that, like, we lose out. And like, for me, it was $40,000 a year. I'm like, yo, I need that. Because if I don't have that, like, I'm not finishing it. And I can only think about the other people who were struggling in that same boat. Like, if they're stressing because they got to fall into that top 75% and they don't make it. And now it's like, what do? I just spent an entire year here. And now how am I going to afford, to keep this? And not to mention the fact that your grades, regardless of what you get on the test, it doesn't determine how well you actually perform or know the law, because everything's done on this dumb curve. Like at the curve, I just hate everything about it. They're trying to get you to compete against each other to see who like rises to the top. All three of us could go to law school, right? We get, you know, if the way this curve would work, we're on law school, we take a test out of 100. You get 100, I get a 99, Chris get a 98. Mm-hmm. Well, if it's on this curve and there's only allowed one A, one B, and one C, you get the A, I get the B, he gets a C, even though he got 98 out of 100 on the exam. Like,
damn.
Bro, like, what are we doing? Yeah, it's stupid. It's absolutely dumb. I could go off on this for the longest time. I hate everything about the way that law school is structured, like being in it, especially being a little bit older. Maybe if I was younger, I'd be like, whatever. But being who I am now, I'm like, this is some bullshit, man. Fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Like, you should set people up to fail. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But, you know, I made it through. I was able to keep my scholarship that first year. You know, it's hard because you are being taught to think in a different way, right? Like very much when you're in undergrad and even some graduate programs, right? It's very much regurgitation of the material, right? It's not a whole lot of analysis, especially when you're in the sciences, right? Like if you're doing chemistry, you're getting your degree in chemistry, there's no nuance to chemistry, right? Salt is what salt is.
Yeah.
Period. Here, there's in law school, there's so much nuance. That's where anytime you're talking to somebody who is a lawyer and you're giving them this like, hey, like what happens to test so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, and this and that. And they always say, well, it depends. Literally nothing is the same. It could just be one little tweak in, you know, a fact pattern, one little tweak in the wording of a law that can completely change everything. And so you're basically being taught to analyze and even in some cases overanalyze everything. And it can be a hard thing to wrap your mind around. But once you are able to do that, law school, it's really not that difficult. Like it's really like the first like 7 or 8 weeks. I really compare it to like a boxing fight. Like it's the first couple of rounds you're feeling it out, except law school is Tyson and you are Lil Matt. And you know, Tyson just punches you in the face one time. You're like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah,
like
you're out of there.
I have no idea what I'm doing here right now. But you know, you get back up and you fight back against it. Like it's really not that as difficult as a lot of people make it seem.
Understood. Man, that sounds awful. I had no idea. And it's kind of funny. I don't know if you seen our episode, I forget, episode 10, I think, episode 10 with our friend Lamar, who's an author. He's a Black author. And he started talking about his experiences. And one of the first things he brought up was like trying to get his book published. And, you know, he basically called them white gatekeepers, like, it's basically white people telling him like, hey, this isn't Black enough. You know, like, where's the drugs? Where's the hardship? Where's the trauma? And it was just a crazy concept to think about as a Black man trying to write a book about just a normal Black teen, or actually he's in his mid 20s, like, and going to college, just a random dude in a love story, you know, kind of nerdy. And then he has these white publishers or white agents basically telling him no, because the story needs more, you know, gun shootings or needs to be more hood. So it's kind of crazy. Like I figured you might get into that after you became a lawyer, but to hear you're kind of already dealing with that, you know, your first, would you say 8 weeks of being a lawyer?
Oh, 100%. You are constantly fighting against this notion that you don't belong there. Like that is, especially, you know, minority people of color, like that is, you're hit with that immediately. Like when you show up for orientation and you see there's nobody around that looks like me. Like I'm the only one here that looks like me and nobody else looks like me. And you're trying to find the people and and like just mingle with them and get to know them. And there's that, it's not imposter syndrome for me. It's more like, it's like you were mentioning with the author, it's a gatekeeping thing. It's like, hey, we're here. You got in for some other reason. No, fuck you. I got in here because I'm smart and I'm probably smarter than a lot of you. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to being able to prove it. Like the school, San Diego does they do a great job of trying. And I say trying because another thing that I feel people don't understand about law school is that the school is run by the faculty. Like law school is run by the faculty. They're the ones who kind of just oversee everything. And the faculty are made up of predominantly older white men. Like when I tell you that my torts professor would sit there and talk about his time under this judge who was the California Supreme Court judge in like the 60s. I'm like, damn, you were 300 years old. Why are you still here? Retire and go sit on the beach. Like, you don't need to be here. Let somebody else come in here and teach this who's a little younger. Like, there were plenty of time in that class we thought, this man might keel over and die during lecture. He's that old. Those are the people who are running. And of course, because of their old, because they're in the law, like they have a conservative slant and they do not look kindly upon, diversity, and they do not look kindly upon, DEI programs and all of those things that the schools are trying to put in because they're like, yo, the money, like, let's be real. They're not doing this because they like Black people. They're like, the money is in being more diverse. So we need to be able to do this in order to be more attractive, to bring in more money. And y'all are holding us back. It's fascinating. Like law school is just fascinating in general. And I feel like if I was younger, like if I was fresh out of undergrad and went to law school, I probably would have a different experience. But me being a little bit older gets me to be on the outside of everything, kind of looking in and just observing, which is fine. That's where I want to be. I don't need to be in all the drama. Very first year law school, there's a professor who writes an article in a law review journal. And I didn't get an opportunity to read it, but it was just causing this big stir on campus. Apparently he's super racist. I'm like, wow, okay. I don't know what a law professor would write that would be that racist, that you're having conversations and you're like calling for students to meet up at this local spot, to talk about it and have a discussion. Like, what are you talking about? And I finally get a chance to read the article. When I tell you this article was like full of the oldest Black racial stereotypes and tropes, like Black people are not successful because they come from single parent households. Black people are not successful because they spend their money on, Cadillacs and I'm like, bro.
Good Lord, this nigga said Cadillacs?
It was just nonsense like that. I'm like, can I get some, like, look, like all the stuff that's been like, been fully debunked. Can I get some new racism? Like, I just want some fresh stuff that I can like think about and be like, okay, this is how I'm debunked. Like, this is stuff that's been debunked since the 90s. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that was my first year. Last year, we had a professor old white professor, just say nigga in the middle of class. Like,
wow.
Just the hard R? The hard R. Like,
in what context?
All right. So he's talking about jury selection, voir dire. And he's talking about how when really old professor, so he's talking about back in my day when I did it, you had prosecutors who would write, have their little, jury box and, they would take notes on each juror and they would put initials for each juror's skin color or like race or identity. So they write, and he said it just like they would write A for Asian. And I was listening at this point, but I wasn't really focused on what he was saying because he was a kind of a dull professor and I knew what I needed to catch up on. So I was just reading some other stuff, like listening here and there. A for Asian, right? L for Latino. And, my mind, I'm like, I know where you're going. And he said, they would write N, and he said it with the extra inflection. N for nigga. And I'm like, yo. All I heard was the silence in the classroom. Like, it was deafening loud. I look up because all I heard was the grr. Like, I didn't hear the whole thing. I just heard grr. And I look up at him and I was puzzled. I would just, what? Did he say what I think he said? So I looked at like the 3 other Black people that were in the class to see like, did he say what I think he said? And they looked and they were, okay, all right. you what? And he thought he was perfectly fine because it became this big thing where we met with the school administrators, we met with deans, and it became he needs to apologize. And so he came in and gave, I apologize if anybody was offended kind of thing. Like, I don't feel like what I did was wrong. Like, bro, we knew where you were going with this. Like, we're the new generation of students in law school, like, don't put up with that shit. Like, they just flat out don't. So him going in there and saying all that, or just, you're not going to be here much longer. And sure enough, 3 weeks later, he was gone, and we had moved into a different class. Like, that was that was fun. But yeah, like I'm waiting in my final year. I'm like, what racial incident will happen this year? Because I've had one in each of my first 2 years. Like, what's the next one that's going to happen? I don't know. We'll see.
That is crazy. And then it's funny, I had this question in the back of my head this whole time, but kind of doesn't make sense after those stories. But I mean, it still makes sense, but it's kind of a weird transition. If you could like give yourself any advice, if you could talk to your former self on the first day of law school, going in blind. Also, anybody listening that may want to go to law school, a Black man or woman, or any race, actually, is there any advice that you would give yourself or to, anybody thinking about going to law school?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I could give to anybody who's thinking about it is, number one, to do it. There are so many people out there I feel like are trying to flip that kind of that narrative, like law school's so difficult, it's not worth it. I don't agree with any of that. I think that's such terrible advice. It is hard, but it is very rewarding after you finish it. Like, that first year when I was done, like, man, I survived. Like, I made it through. I got to keep my money. I worked a really great, job up back in Riverside. I was in Riverside at the public defender's office. I mean, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. I think the biggest thing would be just not to be so hard on yourself in that first semester, especially those first few weeks, because you're going to think that you get it, and then your professor is going to throw a curveball at you, and you're going to go, okay, no, I don't understand any of it. I know nothing. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you're not going to get it, and it's okay. It will eventually come to you. Just relax, take your time. Don't be so hard on yourself. You eventually, will get it. You'll make it through. And then the other thing I tell all students that you're not going to learn how to actually be a lawyer at law school. Where you're going to learn to be a lawyer is whatever jobs you take. Like, I've learned more at any of the internships that I've done than I ever got at, work being in classes or taking classes. So that's the other thing I'll give. Like, what you do at your internships is going to define you more than anything that's going to happen at school.
That's interesting. I would not have guessed that, but it does make sense.
Yo, Ron. I didn't know if you heard me well. No, I understand a little bit of what you're talking about. Like, a little bit about me. I went to school too. I was actually gonna go to law school. I took the LSAT and everything. I decided not to go because of the money. Plus I was a little bit older at the time. Then I realized I didn't want to be a lawyer. Like, my school had like a little pre-law program. We called it Law and Society. And only reason I even took that program is for the same reason. Like, somebody, it was a little racist, but they came at me wrong. And I joined that program just to outcompete him in it. It ended up being fun, but I remember my senior year, I was just like, dude, I don't want to do this. Like, I wanted to be a teacher, but yeah, it's just, there is really a lot of like racism in academia, or not really a lot, but there's enough. And yeah, that constant, like, you shouldn't be here. It even come from people like who, like, just a short story. There was a dude, he used to cheat off me too, and he accused me of getting into school by affirmative action. Mind you, I went to a UC that got rid of affirmative action in 1996. And this was like 2013. it's the same dude who used to cheat off me. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's just like some people still think you don't belong. And you just yeah, don't look at my homework no more then, bro. You know what I mean? So it's just like I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just like it's just weird. Like I understand too. And the barriers too to keep them out. Like, like a lot of places aren't doing the LSAT no more.
Mm-hmm.
And like one thing like you hit on, like that doesn't even correlate to being a good lawyer. Like a good LSAT score doesn't correlate to being a good lawyer. It's just a fucking test that has nothing to do with law or nothing. It's just a test that they make you take. Like, and a lot of people have gotten held back by that, and who could have been good lawyers. And it was just barriers, and that's what a lot of standardized tests were there for, to keep us out, because it's not really about who's smarter or who's not. It's just who's a better test taker sometimes, So
absolutely.
So yeah, like you brought that up about the barriers to keep us out, and that was one of them. I'm glad like they took that down.
Yeah, no, you would 100% never lie about that. That the LSAT is garbage. It is an absolute garbage, exam that doesn't. So you can, determine these logic puzzles. That does nothing for law school. Like absolutely nothing. It doesn't do anything. Like the reading comprehension. All right, cool. Like you're gonna have to read and be able to understand a lot of, these laws that are written, like fucking Shakespeare wrote in the 1600s. It's dumb the way we write laws, right? But like it doesn't stop. Like it truly does not. Like law school is such a scam in itself. Like it is 100% a scam. If there were other ways, like I know California itself allows for you to do an apprenticeship program where you're basically working under a different attorney or under an attorney for your time, and then you have to take take a 1-year exam, which is basically like the baby bar, so to speak, and then you work. And once you've completed enough hours of work, you can take the actual bar exam and then be able to practice. But like that is another barrier, right? Because you have to be able to find an attorney who's willing to sit and work with you for 3, 4, 5 years before you can do that, right? Like not a lot of attorneys want to do that. So then you got the cost. The cost of law school is just exploding. Like my school is like $62,000 a year tuition, right? And just tuition. That's not counting the fact that I live in San Diego and a shack is like $3,000 a month, right? So you got that. Then you are buying, like the books are just unbelievable. Every book is like $300. Every single book. A lot of the professors here have done a great job just saying, okay, well, yeah, the book is $300, but here's the stuff we're going to talk about. I'm just going to send that to you via email. Cool. Like I don't have to read the textbook. So like that's another thing that's the barrier, right? Just simply getting the job. I know that I was able to I didn't stress about jobs, but that was because I had 2 other master's degrees and I had a whole host of job experience. I was working at Shurian, I managed a Target, I did all this stuff before going to law school. So it was easy for me to get that first job. Like I knew I wanted to work at Riverside PD. That was the only job I applied for. Like that's where I want to go. And I got it. I had all that. There was no way they weren't taking it. It had been done. So like I know where I kind of benefit more so than other students, right? So then once I got that first job, it was easy for me to get the second job and the third job and the fourth job, and now my entire resume is just, law, just law related stuff. So when I finally go out and try to get that actual full-time job, they're going to look at it and be like, wow, like you did a lot of stuff during the school year. But again, that's another barrier because now you're fighting against, other people that are in your school who are trying to get to the same place that you were trying to get to. What is it that you can offer that other people aren't offering? Did you even have the ability to like gain some of that knowledge? Because again, like if you're trying to work in, say mergers and acquisitions, you're trying to do corporate or contract law, and you look like us, odds are you probably haven't been in the circles or running the circles of people who do stuff like that. You just haven't, right? You're not sitting there talking with, Stewart on his yacht about, the 700th company that you just acquired and made, $10.5 million on the deal. You don't get those opportunities. So there, like, so many of the barriers in law school could easily be remedied, but I always say that when something is easy, like can easily be remedied, it will never get done, because that means that there's somebody at the top who has to cede power, and nobody out here trying to cede power once they got it. So, we'll see how and it just continues.
It's a great point.
It just continues too. Like if you want to practice like on your own, you have to put any money that you get into what's called an IOLTA account. You have to open a very specific account that you keep money. So if I'm an attorney, Jay, you come to me and you're like, hey man, I got a problem, right? I'm gonna hire you as my attorney. I'll give you an advance on the fees, right? Perfect. I take the advance. That's not my money because I haven't earned it yet. I haven't done anything. So that goes into an IOLTA account, which is an interest-bearing account. And so it sits there and it gains interest, which is awesome. Who gets that interest? Neither of us get the interest.
Damn.
That interest gets to go somewhere else. What they call, legal services for the less fortunate.
AKA some bullshit.
It's about 100. Oh, absolutely. Like it's going into somebody who's at the bar, so it's going to their pocket. Like at least that's my genuine belief on that, because like all of these programs are underfunded when it comes to legal services for people who actually need it. They're all underfunded, and if all this interest was going to pay for that, like why are these programs not as funded as they should be? So I mean, there's a whole lot, man. It just kind of goes, and that makes me frustrated. But I'm happy to get into it because I want to do the work. Like I love doing the work. Got so much from the various places that I've been, the PD's offices that I want to do. I'm pretty sure I want to do criminal law, but I had a really interesting time with the city attorney's office this past summer, and we did some really interesting work, some really like ridiculous cases, and that seems kind of fun too. So I'm kind of in the air. I don't know what I want
to do. Okay.
Hey, Rob. Since you brought it up, like this is one thing that, like I said, I learned, but I'm gonna have you explain it. Can you explain the 3 different types of laws? So like people have like an idea of like what you mean when you say, I don't know which type of law I want to do.
Oh man, there's so many types. So you have, for example, you can kind of break them into like 3 broad groups, right? So you have criminal, you have civil, you'll have public interest, a little bit of criminal, which is a little bit of criminal and civil. It can be. You'll also have corporate law, where you're basically working for a particular company. You're their attorney to basically make sure that everything that they do is above the law. They're not doing the wrong things, right? They will try to come forward with some program and they'll bring it to the attorney on the site there, and he'll look at it and go, you're in violation of A, B, C, D, and E, law. This is what you need to do to fix it, kind of thing. And within those categories, there are even deeper subcategories. I feel like the most common one that everyone's aware of, right, is you have prosecution and you have defense in criminal law, right? But you also have different variations. You can go into private, right? You can do your own thing. You can work at a small firm. You can work for the government in various different capacities, not just as a public defender, but as a federal defender. There are so many things that you can do. And even if you don't necessarily end up doing something specifically related to law, like just having that JD is a huge, boost or pay boost. Joe, right? Tillman, he's an investment banker now. Like the dude doesn't do anything really with law anymore. But that JD and the experiences and all that stuff he got with it, like propelled him into that position where dude's making just dumb money, his hand over fist. And again, it's something that you can really get with a JD. So even if you decide, practicing law isn't necessarily for me. There's still a million things that you can do. People will take if you have a JD, like that just opens up new doors for you, even if you're not practicing.
Word.
Sure. And then, go ahead, C-Rock.
I was say, yeah, I remember, like I said, when I was at school, I remember like the basis of it. I really enjoyed like the early philosophical aspects of it. When you first learn to like, read case briefs and, you're reading like, the transcripts of cases and then trying to figure out, what's the legal issues here and stuff like that. That was fun. So I think I enjoyed the philosophical aspects of it, but then like actually paying the money to do it, like you said it. And then I think what turned me off was one of my friends got an internship and at a small law firm. And I went to visit him, and the junior lawyer there, I think this dude might have went to like, I don't know what's jumping out at me, Dartmouth. I'm not even sure they have a law school, but I forgot where he went, but he went to a pretty good law school. The dude made like 40 grand a year at this law firm. I was like, yeah, bro, that's not worth it. To go through all that. And like, I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do this no more. But that's what turned me off. I was like, I could.
I wouldn't want to do it for that money either. 40 grand? Oh no.
But this was like, I guess back there in 2014 or something, but still, even back then that wasn't that much. But I was like, oh Jesus Christ, bro. Like you're getting ripped by whoever running this law firm, bro. Like I haven't even graduated with my undergrad yet. And I understand that, but it was like I said, when I just kind of got caught into it, I wanted to initially be a teacher. So I just kind of like got into it. But it's a lot of that aspect to me was a lot of fun. Like, going through it and arguing, your aspects on those cases and stuff like that. That was real fun.
This nigga C-Rock loves to argue.
Yeah. Yeah, that's still because it was like how we do with the the morality questions and stuff like that. It's sort of like that, you know what I mean? Like going over a case and trying to figure out, hey, what was the legal issue here? And then like actually learning how to read the transcripts, which like sometimes like like they have the stenographer, like J-Man, like sometimes like they don't write down who's saying what. They just write it all down. And it's so hard to tell what the fuck's going on sometimes. Like if somebody be talking to somebody to cut them off and all they do is skip a line or skip 2 lines.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's somebody else talking and you're just reading like, what the hell is going on? It doesn't make any sense. And you got to kind of start putting it together about who's saying stuff because like.
Damn, that's interesting. I never even knew that.
Yeah, like because a lot of times it's cases that were argued to the Supreme Court. So there's the justices, or not like just the U.S. Supreme Court, but like the Supreme Court of a state, and there might be like 5 judges, and then the 2 lawyers, and the lawyer might be talking, and one of the judges cuts him off, like, "Hey, but what about this?" And then he answers that, and then he goes back to his original point that he was making, and then this and that. So they don't write sometimes who's saying what. Yeah. They just write it all down, and you got to still, and then they give it to you, and you got to figure it out. Like, and so it's like challenging, but it's like fun, So
yeah, the best court reporters like find a way to make sure that kind of makes sense. Because like one of the things I had to do this past internship is again like second day of the internship. I had a deposition. I had to attend a deposition, interviewing somebody who was suing the city for falling off his bicycle on the road. And the funniest thing about that was when we got the transcripts 2 weeks later and reading the transcript, because like I was there and I took all these notes, and like there was legitimate beef between the attorney that I was working with and his attorney. Like they were just going back and forth. Like, it was civil beef. You know what I mean? It was very much, that professional beef.
Like you on TikTok?
No, it was even more professional than that. It was very much, I don't appreciate you badgering my client with these questions. Sir, I am asking the questions. He is willing to, if He can say he doesn't want to answer them, but he hasn't given me an answer. He has given you an answer. I appreciate it if you would stop doing that. Sir, I'm not the one that's being deposed here. If you would like to do this, we can schedule a time for you to have a deposition, which when I was sitting there watching it and seeing the body language, that was absolutely we can take this outside. Mm-hmm. Like this wasn't an invitation to schedule. It was like, we can step outside right now if you bout it. But reading that stuff in the transcript where like they're constantly interrupting, and I'm like, I was there and I had to go back and like repiece some of this stuff together because the names weren't there. But I remember all of this. I'm like, okay, yeah, that was something. It's the best ones do. They will bold and like italicize certain people. Like they'll just keep it like that. Like a certain attorney will be bold, a certain attorney or witness will be like italicized in the writings to make it a little bit easier. But that shit is hilarious to me. Reading transcripts and reading depositions and stuff like that is hilarious because I'm trying to be proper, but I'm also trying to get my point across. Like, I'm gonna fuck you up.
I will say one thing too about learning about it. I think at least getting the basics down, the average citizen, the average person could learn a lot and understand like a lot about like just the society you live in and even how it affects your everyday life by just understanding the basics of law, the basics of the different, like tort, the difference between tort law and criminal law, and what you're liable for in certain things and what you're not, and learning that legal definitions are different from normal definitions, so you can understand when certain things are said. Short story. I was going over something with my homeboy. It was something Second Amendment related, and because he wants to use a rifle as his home defense weapon. I was like, hey, bro, like, the bullets travel in a rifle, the velocity is higher. So I was like, dude, if you injure somebody else, like your neighbor, it doesn't matter if you're using it in self-defense, you're liable for their injuries. And he just really didn't get why. He was just like, but why? And I was like, because you caused it. But I didn't mean to. I was like, it's not criminal law. You don't have to have meant to. It's fucking tort law. You just did it. If you did it, you caused it, you gotta pay for it. And he just really don't get it. A lot of people just really don't get that. And I think
it's more so they refuse to get it.
Yeah, maybe that's a part of it too. He eventually got it. He understood it. I used the example that the professor, he was a lawyer too, who ran the pre-law program. That he used in it, but he used like this weird example, but it was so weird you kind of get it. He was like, imagine if I went crazy today and I took a ninja sword and I cut your arm off. Like, yeah, I was crazy, so I'm not legally criminally responsible, but I still have to pay for your injury. He's like, so what? You just have to live life with one arm and I don't have to compensate you in any way. He's like, how fair would that be? And I was like, yeah, that's so true. But it's such a weird little example, but it always stuck out to me as a pretty good
OJ thing. Just always use OJ when it comes to that. Like OJ was criminally found acquitted, and then he was civilly liable for all of that and had to pay. Well, I don't know if he paid anything because he's just been trying his hardest to not pay them any money, but that's pretty much what it is, right? Like I love that you brought that up, because I think that's one of the more fascinating things about law, just the different standards and what they call levels of evidence required, right? So criminal, right, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, right? And then in civil law, it's more, it's like preponderance of the evidence. It's more likely than not. There could be other ways that this thing could have happened, but the evidence says 51, 40. I'm pretty sure I missed it. No, I'm missing one. I'm not trying to think about any of that, but there's 3 levels it is.
Yeah.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, then there's one in between preponderance. One is 70. It's 70%. So it's way my evidence professor discussed it. That all of that stuff is just, it's fascinating, but it also it makes you go our legal system's kind of held together with hopes and dreams. And the moment someone decides to just go, fuck it, like the rest of this is just gonna fall. Like it's literally a house of cards. Mm-hmm. It's literally like that.
Yes, it's that we went over even like really famous cases, and then now like to like remember I don't know if they were, I'm pretty sure actually you do know it, but remember the McDonald's one with the spilling the coffee?
No,
I remember like thinking that was such a dumb decision. But once we got over it in legal, I was like, okay, it makes perfect fucking sense now. Like that was actually the right decision. But you hear it like as a normal person, like, what, dude? Like she spilled the coffee on herself. Why does McDonald's have to pay all this money? But then you hear like, just like you said, like the details change it. Like once you hear the details of the case, I don't know, like if you ever heard of Jay, man, of that lady who she won, I think it was what, 70 million.
Yeah, I watched a documentary of it, so I know the whole story.
But yeah, like about why she won the money, and like I was like, okay, now I get it. And then we went over the case of two, where the guy broke it to the other guy's house, and then the guy shot him, and then he sued him and won. But I was like, okay, now I get why he sued him and won, because the dude was running away and the guy chased him down and shot him. And so then he was just like, yeah, he did have a right to get away. You know, he didn't steal anything, but he had the right to escape. And it was just like, okay, now the stuff makes sense. And that's why like I brought it up, like, hey, you know, it's good for a lot of people to like get the details of things and really understand, you know, like how the legal system works, and that on some level it's not complete bullshit. You know, you don't really have to go to law school to do a lot of that stuff, you know?
No, you don't.
So
you don't. So it's I think that's good. I think it's cool that they offered or had program like that. What school was that at?
UCR.
Oh,
it was called a Law Society program. It was like sort of like part of it was just like the professor who ran it, he tried to like throw in a little bit of stuff that you'll learn at law school, so you can get like a little bit of taste for people who wanted to go in and stuff like that. So that's why like we did précis, we did, like I said, reading legal documents, stuff like that, taking like philosophy of law classes and stuff like that, just to get like a little bit of like some of the stuff you would do. It's like I said, it's a little bit. You just, like I said, learn like the really basics, like, hey, legal definitions versus normal definitions, and, you know, reading case briefs and learning the difference between different levels of murder, like involuntary manslaughter, first degree, second degree, third degree, you know, like, and all that. And having to, like, the tests were kind of intense for an undergrad. Like he would be like, hey, tell me the difference between first degree, second degree murder and involuntary manslaughter, cite cases, and what did they decide in those cases and stuff like that. And it'd be stuff we went over in the classes. And so it was just getting used to doing that type of stuff, you know. And like I said, I enjoyed it. Like, because like I said, like it just opened up like just a way of like, you never like looked at your own society that you lived in, you know, like, oh, okay. You know, like how the criminal, and it's funny how we had a lawyer come in to one of our classes, and he was talking about jury selection too. And I'm sitting in the front, and he's just like, yeah, you know, if you're on the prosecution side and you have a black or Latin defendant, you want the whitest jury you can get. He was like, they convict. He was like, they convict even if the evidence doesn't fit. And I'm like sitting around like looking back, nigga, did he just say that out loud? Nigga, like, it's like, really? He's like, yeah, bro. Like,
I mean, he's not wrong. Right. He's not wrong, but
that almost sounds like a Dave Chappelle skit. Like, I can't believe that fucking happened to you. God damn, what the fuck? But it does make sense. Damn. That's insane.
Like statistically proven, like they're a little bit less likely to believe that we're innocent. And so it's
a little less likely,
a lot less likely. But yeah, he was just like, yeah, you need to try to get the whitest jury you fucking can up in that shit. So I was like, it just reminded me of like when your professor said the N-word, it's just like that real moment, like, oh damn, you know, like they just be blunt out about this shit. Like, you know, like
I feel like a lot of attorneys don't have real world, like social experience. I feel like those people who went straight from undergrad and then just went to law school, right? That was like, that's their just drive. That's what I want to do. I feel like they're so socially awkward that they just miss out on like that kind of stuff. Where it's just like, hey, I can word this a little bit better than just to say, hey, as a prosecutor, you know, you're just trying to get rid of all the colored people. Oh, yeah. You don't need to say it like that. You just say, hey, what I'm trying to do is build a jury that is going to be more favorable to my case. Like it just got that. Just, you don't have to just sit there and say, yeah, man, like America racist as shit. This is why. Like, if I want to convict people, I just get all the white folk and they're going to convict this man. Don't matter what he did. He's going to get convicted. That's, yeah, I would probably try to think.
I think the scary part about that entire situation is these people are thinking like just so logically to the point that they have zero empathy for people of color. Like, they don't even see them as people. They see them as, I can statistically improve my chances of winning this case if I get white people. And instead of like you said, said it in a way that shows a little empathy, like, hey, you know, it's kind of messed up, but if you're trying to increase your chances to win in this case before it even starts, and you have a person of the defendant who's the, you know, person of color, you know, you kind of want this, and you know, it's not right, but these are just the facts of, you know, you trying to get your case. Like, it's fine to explain it like that, but statistically, you know, that nigga's going to jail. Like, that's basically that's basically what he's telling you guys, and that's fucking crazy to hear out loud. But now that I think about it, it makes perfect sense. It's like, wow, once you hear it, it kind of is like mind blown.
No, for sure. Have any of y'all actually like sat in, like, gone to jury duty, like participated?
Yeah.
No,
nobody.
I have.
You have? Okay, so you actually went down. Like, did you get to participate?
Yeah, I was in the box. I argued with the prosecution to get kicked off, and he kicked me off.
Smart man.
I knew what to do. I had already been through my program. I knew what to do. I argued with him.
But see, that's the thing. That thing, we need us on the jury, right? Like, we need us there, because I sat in, like, now that I'm in law school, I will actually go, oh, I have a jury summons. Let me go participate in jury duty. Because before I'd be like, I never got that. I don't know what you're talking about. Right? You can't prove that I got it. And now I realize, because, you know, the mailbox rule, which is a rule that basically says that if something has been put into the mailbox, it is assumed that it was received, unless you can prove that you didn't receive it. And I'm like, wow, I was dumb when I was younger. So yeah, I received all the jury summons. They just never prosecuted me for not going to jury duty. So I go there, and the majority of people who were in the jury rooms, like waiting to be picked, are like white men and white women that are like 50, 60, 70. They're all retirees, which means they were, you know, they were probably the ones sick in the dogs, right, in the 60s. It's like, yo, we need to be there so that, like, they can actually get, you know, a fair trial. One of the things that I learned, and it just so stark, just being in Riverside and seeing some jury selection, is that the people who were in jury duty, they already have this idea, and it's a very wrong idea, about like what the purpose of the trial is, how it is supposed to work, right? Like what the role of the prosecution is, what the role of defense is. Like, there were people who would think, oh yeah, the defense team has to prove that he's innocent. No, he does not. If, assuming I'm, you know, eventually become a defense attorney, if I'm defending somebody, I don't have to do anything, because the onus is all on the prosecution. They got to be able to prove their case. And if they can't do it, I don't have to do anything. He doesn't have to do anything. We just sitting and we chilling. We playing Smash Brothers. I'll just bring the Switch out and we just hang out and chill. And then, you know, we just keep it. We just let, hey, they didn't prove their case. Like, I can just stand and be like, they didn't prove their case. Can we, you know, dismiss the case? But there's a lot of people who still need jury. They're like, okay, well, defense is supposed to prove that he's innocent, and the defense has to put forth witnesses. And if he doesn't go out and testify, oh, I think he's definitely guilty. No, man, like, that's not how any of this shit works.
Yeah, a lot of people side with the prosecution just by default, and the prosecution knows that. It's weird that the prosecution coming into a case has an advantage. Like, it's just like that sort of built-in advantage. And people really don't understand. I remember I was talking to my brother-in-law about the Casey Anthony case, and I had to explain to him because he was just like, well, this is funny. Why did she do this? Why didn't she do that? And I was just like, dude, like, I think the jury made the right decision. No, blah, blah, blah. And he's going at it, and I was like, look, bro, like, they're not asking you, do you think she did it? They're asking you, did the jury or that the prosecution prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she did it? Yep. And they did not prove that. I was like, if I could bet on it, I would bet she did it. if we were like betting, I would bet. But did they prove it in that case? No. Same thing with OJ. Like, people can't get over that. I was like, dude, their case fell apart when the lead detective who found the fucking DNA came out to be a racist. That's a reasonable doubt right there, bro. I was like, am I saying OJ's innocent? No. I'm saying no, the jury did the right thing and acquitted him. Because you're supposed to side with the person, not the damn prosecution. But a lot of people just do that. And
100%.
There's some great points.
Yeah, a lot of people just, I'm not going to side with a criminal. Like, he ain't a criminal. He ain't got convicted or nothing. What he ain't, like, it's like, so it's just like, yeah, that's why I was like, dude, like, you don't have to, like I said, go to law school to know this stuff. But honestly, a lot of it should be taught in high school. Like, it should be like, because it's really important, like, for people to understand that, like, 100%. To understand how the system works a little bit better, because it's just like, damn, dude, it's like, it's scary.
Like that was supposed to be government, and it didn't. I feel like government didn't work out like that.
Yeah, yeah. It really, like, it teaches it on some, like, here's how the Constitution works and stuff like that, which is sort of important. But for your everyday life, it's this stuff like this, like the tort liability and the not just criminal liability and all that, because that could really like that really affects your life. Like I was telling my homeboy, I was like, dude, you should, like, about going back to 2A thing. I was like, dude, if you were to actually do that, like, and let's say like you hit somebody and they have hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills, bro, it's like, dude, you can lose your business. Because he is a business owner. I was like, dude, they can come after you and take everything from you.
Yeah. And
they would win. And I was like, what you're failing to understand, like, that's all that you're gonna go to court and they're like, hey man, did you shoot him? You're shooting at somebody? Yeah, I was shooting at an intruder. And then did you shoot him while shooting at the intruder? Yes. Guilty. Like, you owe him this money. Nigga, like, it's gonna go like that. That's all they have to prove is you did it. And it's that fucking simple, bro. And you're gonna, and like, a lot of people just don't get that, and they're walking around with guns and shit. Like, it's like they don't understand the liability of it, and it's a scary thing, So
yeah, that makes perfect sense, and a lot of people naturally don't look at it that way, because when it logically doesn't make sense, but when you like break it down, how that the examples you gave, you're perfectly right, and that's the way it should be. And I just got a quick question for Rob before we start wrapping this episode up. Is there any like either controversial, just really outlandish, or just any type of cases you went over, whether in school or just knowledgeable of, outside of school, just a case you want to do a quick rundown and maybe has a surprising, answer to, I don't know how to explain it, but I'm pretty sure you get the gist.
No. Okay. I got what you're trying to say. Oh my God, man. This is where, like, the confidentiality rules and attorney-client privilege kills me, because I've worked on some outlandish stuff, but they're still ongoing, so I can't, like, talk about them.
Can you say like Walmart instead of Target and use different names?
Well, there's one with the city that I got to work on, that the appeal just got handed down. But that one's pretty, like, that one you can read the case briefs, so I feel comfortable talking about that specific stuff within there.
Okay.
But basically, the situation is a cop hit a citizen, like hit somebody who was in their car, not purposefully. He saw something was happening. It's a pretty common occurrence, apparently. I didn't know that, but
hit like as in shot or like punched?
No, so just with this car. So like their car's driving. A car like does a 6-lane change, right? Just like good luck, and just takes off. And then he sees that, like, I'm gonna pull him over, and then when he goes to do it, he hits a car that's next to him. He just didn't see it because he had the tunnel vision on the car. So he hits this car, right? Car spins out, right? There's damages to the car, right? The city is like, hey, we probably did screw up. Like, this is what's going on. But he wants to file like civil rights action. He claimed that the police officer was racist, that he hit him on purpose. And I'm like, bro, how? Like, please tell me how. Like, this happened at like 8:00 at night or something. Like, it's dark. Like, please tell me how the cop was like, that's a Negro right there, or that's a Muslim, or that's a whomever, that's Hispanic. I'm gonna hit him with my car. Like, bro, what are you talking about? And he wanted to file like all of these actions, and the attorney that I
just got to say real quick, I never heard of a racist cop trying to play fucking Mario Kart or some shit.
Right? Yeah, it's just outlandish. It's like, come on, man.
Like, that's just the thought I had, like playing Mario Kart and trying to bump somebody off the road. Like, it don't make no sense.
Like, the cop is good. Like, if a cop wants to mess with you, they'll just figure it out, right? They'll do it. They're definitely not gonna do that, right? He tried to file. He wanted the attorney to file all these suits, and the attorney just said, no. And once you become somebody's attorney, if you want to withdraw from that representation, there's a bunch of steps you have to do. And again, it's all public stuff. He filed to be removed as his attorney. And at that point, no attorney, like if you are doing so, like, just or asking or requesting outlandish stuff, you want your attorney to file outlandish stuff, and your attorney withdraws from representation, it is almost impossible for you to get representation again, especially in like civil matters, because the attorney, like, everybody talks, man. So everyone sees and they go, yeah, man, I don't really want to work with that person because this is how they're going to react. So he's written his own briefs. And when I tell he's written his own motion, all that, when I tell you that they sound like Donald Trump, like reading it is the funniest thing in the world to read it. It's just like, the city is incredibly racist, and they've admitted to all of this what I'm doing because they tried to engage in mediation and settlement talk with me. And meanwhile, it's like just a motion to oppose, something else, where you're just basically going, hey, I oppose this because there's a tribal fact here. Like, I oppose the summary judgment motion because there's an issue of a material fact here. And he's just going off into all of this conspiracy theory territory. It's like a page and a half long. It's absolute, like, ridiculous nonsense. That was a fun case to like look at and like see. But no, I will say Riverside, there's a couple of cases that I know are still ongoing. That I got to work on. I won't talk about it, but there was a triple homicide in Hemet that happened right before COVID kicked in. Like, literally, I think it was February 27th to 28th, 2020. I got to work on that case for a little bit. That if you can Google and look up the information that they gave there. I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing a blank on the kid's name. But they're both kids. Like, one's 18 and one's 20. It's a triple homicide. They just killed 3 people in this home. Over, the newspaper said the rent dispute. It was a little bit more than that, but we represented the woman in that case. It still hasn't gone to trial. I don't think it's scheduled to go to trial until either this year, like September this year, or September next year. But that one was nuts. Like, it's a sad, like, it's sad, it's frustrating, it's angering, like it's all of the emotions, like, in that case. I'm sure that once we start talking about something else, I'll immediately remember who the woman's name is, but I'm drawing a blank for some reason.
No worries.
Yeah, but that was a really good one. I'm trying to think. I just did, you know what, this at the city, I did a lot of trip and falls on sidewalks. Apparently that's a big deal. Like people just not watching where they're going and they trip over a sidewalk and they're just like, I demand $650,000 because I, broke every bone in my, leg tripping over this, half-inch sidewalk that was, raised a little bit. So those are a little ludicrous. Now, to be fair, man, you read the same cases. Like when Chris is talking about like reading case briefs and stuff like that, it's literally all you're doing in law school. Every day you're reading, 7 or 8 cases, and then you're, discussing them in class the next day and trying to figure, pull out some of the nuggets, whatever it is that the professor wants. There's one I remember from property that really sticks out in my mind. So it's a covenant case. So basically, this group of white people said, we want this neighborhood to remain pure. So in all of the covenants, right, or like contracts on the houses, we're going to enforce this thing in which you cannot sell your house to anybody who isn't white.
What the fuck? What city is this?
No, it's in California. I'm drawing a blank on the case name. But it was just, if you Google like racial covenants, you'll get that information. I'm just drawing a blank on the case names. Yeah,
I'll definitely be looking that up after this episode. That's crazy.
Yeah. And there's still a bunch of those like that are on the books that exist in America. Like there's still a bunch of those where it's like, hey, I'm not allowed to technically sell this stuff or sell this to Black people. Like it's ridiculous. But that one was interesting because it became I have a right to do what I want to do with my property versus, okay, yeah, but you still can't discriminate on the basis of race. So how do we necessarily remedy this particular practice? I thought that one was really fascinating because it was like the courts couldn't necessarily get involved with it because now you're infringing on somebody's right to do whatever it is they want to do with their property. So that whole thing was fascinating, but those still exist. Like you can look that up and see there are definitely places in this country where they just go, yeah, no, you can't sell your house to Black people.
That's crazy. And then I think I got one more question for you. Once you kind of went over at the beginning, but if you just want to elaborate a little bit more. So we're going to say once you become a lawyer, what are some of your main goals to do?
I really, really want to help people just on the micro level. When I worked with the public defender's office down here in San Diego, I was certified as a law student, which basically meant that I could now perform the acts of an attorney under the supervision of an attorney. So I was, appearing in front of judges on behalf of clients, and I was arguing motions and arguing basically for people to be able to not have to pay, a ton of stuff with regard to DUIs. Because a lot of the stuff that I was dealing with were DUIs. They're really just, first time or second time or whatever. And I remember I had this person who was an older person, like 70-ish years old. This was their first DUI. And they're on, they're struggling to pay, their rent, they're on Social Security, disability, they have a very limited income. And when you're a first-time DUI offender, there are all these things you have to do. So you're gonna have to take this like MAD class, and there's these other like 3-month courses that you're gonna have to take, but they're expensive. They're like $600-700 to be able to take this class. And this person couldn't afford it. And this DUI, they'd done everything they're supposed to do, but that one class because they didn't have the $600 to pay for it. And so I remember going up and arguing in front of the judge, hey, this has been going on for 2.5 years. They don't have the money to pay for this. They've done everything else. They have not been driving, etc. Can we just go ahead and just waive the fees. And I'd already discussed it with a previous prosecutor that was sitting there, but then that person left and another person came in that I didn't get the chance to talk to. So they argued against it. And the judge finally says, well, no, we'll just kick the can down the road. So they ended up having to come back to court like 3 months later. And I'm pretty sure they're still just kicking the can down the road. Like, who is this benefiting? Like, who is getting anything out of it? The system is so set up to just flat out punish instead of try to, fix or remedy a situation. And it's so frustrating. And so I don't want to be at the macro trying to overhaul the changes, because it just takes too long. And I don't know how long I'm actually going to have the opportunity to practice. I would much rather be at the micro, at the front lines, defending the people from these things that are happening and seeing, those lives changed and, being made whole again. That's really my goal, is what I want to do more than anything.
That's powerful, man. Admirable. So it's great to hear, especially, a Black man wanting to kind of help the people out there. So definitely appreciate it.
Got to be somebody, man. Like, if there ain't nobody else out there that's gonna help us. We got to help us.
Facts. All right, so I guess we're gonna go ahead and start wrapping up on that note. But before we do, is there anything you want to say before we get out of here, C-Rock?
No, man, it's a good episode.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah, no, I got nothing.
All right, any closing remarks over there, Rob?
I appreciate y'all having me. I will eventually get around to listening to some of this stuff. Maybe when I'm not wrapped up in everything with law.
Yeah,
no worries, man.
It'll be there.
Yeah, it'll be there waiting for you. But no worries, man. We kind of talked about this on a previous episode. People are busy. People have their own lives. Like, we're not pounding down anybody's door to watch and listen. Is you got the time driving to work, put us on. Let's see what we're about. But yeah, really good episode, man. I learned a lot from both of you. So I'm glad that I got to be on this episode. But yeah, with that note, we're going to go ahead and close this thing down. Thank you for tuning into the Roast with Friends podcast, and like and subscribe, follow, give us some ratings. And again, thanks to everybody that has commented, followed, subscribed, everything. We appreciate it. We need more comments, y'all, man. We've been doing comment of the day and we're running out. So leave us some comments. Let us know what's going on. And on that note, and we gone.
Shot the top on this bitch. Let's roll.